Hey everyone, welcome to the Next Step series with Blooming Melodies. Today, Bianca and I will be talking about the difference between the IB program and AP program.
Anyway, so I'll start with what is IB? So it's an internationally recognized program. It's a 2-year program, and before that 2 year, you have like a pathway thing. So it's kind of like an all-inclusive high school experience because you kind of have your classes before IB kind of set out for you because you have these requirements, and then you have obviously IB classes. And there is a little bit of choice. You do get to take a few electives, but it mostly is a defined path.
Yes, and then AP is a little different. They're just many courses that a school can pick and choose what they want to offer, and it is catered to US students and just how the US education system is structured. You can take the classes based on your strengths, and it all goes to credits for university or colleges.
Oh, same thing for IB. We get college credit too, and we especially get a lot of recognition with international programs for
Yes.
college credit.
Yeah, AP is not internationally recognized. Some schools might accept it outside of the US, but it's harder to get other schools to value it as much as they value IB.
Okay, so when we talk about IB curriculum, the reason that it is so widely accepted across the world is because it is pretty much standardized. Like, there's a lot of the same requirements here that you would have in like India. So, the way it works here is that you have an A-day, B-day program. So for 2 years, you take 8 classes. You take 4 one day and then the other 4 the next day, and that's year long. You have to have, and this is compulsory, you take midterms and finals every single year. So for those, I would definitely not underestimate them. They are something to take into consideration because you have to study for them at least a month in advance because you will be taking like 6 or 7 of them. So that's a big thing. If you're somebody who is a big procrastinator and is not good at studying for things, then that is something to take into consideration. Also, for not just grades IB, but there's stuff outside of IB that kind of is part of the experience because you can't get your diploma without doing these things. Is you have CAS and you have an EE. And CAS is creativity activity service. It means once a week you get to do anything that's creative, active, or service related, and then you log it. And then you have to do reflections once a month on those experiences. And it's very easy. It's not like you don't have to go out and set up a blood drive one week. Like you can just go for a walk in the mountains, and that's activity. You can just do your regular like weekly volunteering if you do that, and that's your service. So it's not a big thing, but there is a CAS project that you do that is like setting up a blood drive. Like it's a big event, and you do that one time for your whole IB 2 years, and you're done. So that's not very hard. I wouldn't think that that would be a challenge for anyone. It might seem a little daunting at first, but once you actually start doing it, it's very like just things you already do, right? That's what pass would be. So the other thing is EE, and that is kind of daunting because it's a very, very long essay, is what it is. It's called the extended essay, EE. And if you haven't noticed, IB likes to use a lot of acronyms, like for everything. So EE, CAS, IB, there's like a bunch more. I can't even think of all of them, but EE is a lot of work and you will start it junior year and the good thing about it is you get to pick anything you want. I mean, it's best to pick something that's one of your IB subjects, but like your IB subjects are every subject is like Spanish, English. If you wanted to do a psych one, you could, but they advise you to do things that you're already learning about in school because you have to have a good background knowledge on something to write an EE about it. But if you already know something, you can definitely do a psychology EE. Like I know people that are doing that. So that's good, but you have to, it's a lot of work. You have to make like 15 bib cards, which are like an annotated bibliography, but they're on, well, for us, it was on like online this year, but I think they're going back to like paper copies of it next year. So that's something to take into consideration. And then also you have to do all these forms for it. And this is before you even start writing. And then once you have a topic and you have an idea where you're going with it, you have to go to an advisor and you have to get an advisor, which is hard because they can say no to you. I actually did this thing called a lock-in yesterday where I get an advisor. And for me, it wasn't that bad because I had already talked to people before the lock-in, so I already knew who I was going to get. But that can be something that's also stressful if you're not willing to be outgoing and talk to your teachers. And that's really as far as I've gone with the process, but I know that the actual writing of it, we have a month now. So it's not that long that you get to write it either. So it's definitely something that I would take into consideration. And people say a lot that IB is a lot of writing, and it is. It is, but I think for the most part, the amount of writing that it is, it's useful writing. Like it's not just nonsense, like write 5 paragraphs on this one question that could be answered in one sentence. Like it's thoughtful writing, right? And that's what your extended essay is. You're writing a lot, but you're writing things that, in college when you have to do research papers, they're things that will help you in the future to be able to write. And then what else did I want to talk about? Oh, being outgoing. That is something I don't know if it's just Marvin specific, but even for your EE, you have to talk to people, right? For CAS, for service, you have to go help people. So being outgoing in your classes is also important because a lot of classes have a participation grade that's just, especially TOK. TOK, if you don't talk, you don't get a good grade in that class. So that is something, if you're not someone who likes to speak out in class, I don't think I would really recommend IB for you. But it's always something that you can work on, right? And IB will help you do that. So moving into like the scoring system of IB, if you want to pull that up, because it's a little bit complicated. But this is basically what you have to do to graduate IB. So you take 6 courses, not including TOK, and on each of those 6 courses, at the end of the year, you take an exam and you can get 7 points total. 7 is like, I'm talking, you're a genius at this, right? Because the average is like a 4 or a 5, right? It's not that high. You don't have to. So out of those 6 courses, 7 points are possible. So you can get a total of 42 points towards your IB diploma, right? Most people, I think the highest anybody has ever gotten at Marvin is 41 out of those 42 points. Nobody's ever gotten a perfect thing. And 41 is insane. But so then on top of that, you have the things I talked about. So TOK, there's an exhibition and there's an IA. An IA, another acronym, is an independent assessment. And it's just it differs for every class. For biology, it would be an experiment. For history, it would be an essay. So that's something that is subject specific. But for TOK, there's an IA, and that you can get 3 points on total. For your CAS, which I talked about, you can get 3 points on that. Oh, sorry, I totally messed this up. You can get 1 point for each of these. And in total, that could be 3 points towards your IB diploma. So 42 plus that 45 means you're, you know, gonna graduate, basically. But I don't think you have to actually get 45 to graduate. I think you have to get 24. 24 and you graduate. So I don't know amount there, but if you get a 4 on each of your exams, which I told you is average, you should be pretty much good. And you can't say I'm not going to do my CAS, I'm not going to do my EE. You have to do those to graduate. You might not get points for them, the extra points, if you're not doing them well, but you have to do them, right? And so that's how it works. It's very hard not to graduate IB. Like it's very, very, very hard, right? Because the chances are, if 4 is average, and a lot of people going into IB are better than average at like most things, including studies, then you should be able to get a 4 easily in most of them. For me, Spanish is going to be a struggle. I might get a 3 in that. I don't know. But my math is good, so I'm going to get a 6 in that. So it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be good at everything. That's like a really common misconception is IB, you have to be like an academic weapon at every single subject. Like, no. No, I am so bad at English. It's fine. And you will still graduate. You will still be happy in life, I promise you. So, yes, do not stress out about whether you're going to graduate because if you work hard, you will graduate. It's very easy. So if I feel like I've been talking for such a long time, I'm sorry, didn't say anything.
Yeah, nope, keep going on your IB stuff. We gotta go into what you think is good and what are some things we should note about it, things to remember.
Okay, so IB pros. This is a big thing in IB because it's really the biggest difference from taking normal classes. Because the classes themselves are like, it's not like revelational. Like, we're not like going outside and like doing experiments that are like changing modern science today. Like, it's a class that you take and it's informational, it's good, it's like, but it's pretty much the same as any other class that you would take in high school, right? It's not like a big difference. But the one difference is that you have a bunch of the same people in every single class, right? And so a big selling point of IB is that sense of community because you have, like, I know that this year I have met some of my best friends that I would not have talked to, like, ever if I didn't go into IB, right? So you also, with that sense of community, not only do you get friends, you get like support on every single thing. I have a group chat for every single subject that I'm in, and there's like every single person in my class is on each of those. And then there's a bigger IB group chat with every single person in IB on it. So I can get help on anything that I need, any question that I need answered in like one text in like 3 seconds. Like it's very, very easy to get support with IB. Also, your teachers, you will have them for this entire year and then all of senior year. So you will really, really, really get to know them. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on what kind of what kind of student you are, you know? But for most of us, I think the more time we spend with the teacher, the more they like us, the more they get to know. What am I saying? My words are like not coming out right now. The more they get to know you. And so that can be really like helpful with teacher recommendations because those are important. And I know, like, in my mind, I already have an idea of who I'm going to ask for my teacher recommendations at the end of this year. And I think they're going to be really good recommendations because these teachers know me very, very well. So that is a big, big plus. The other plus is unlike AP, you can take IB and AP courses at the same time. That being said, you can take one AP class a year for every 7 IB classes you take. And if you take that AP class, you cannot take any other extracurriculars. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm doing 7 IB courses and I'm doing AP Psych. And I really like it. Other people, they decide, no, I'm already taking 7 IB classes. I'm just gonna flex. So for one block every other day, they just don't come to school, which is great. And it works for some people. For me, it doesn't work. I like to be busy. But for some people, it's great. Also, if you do well in IB, which I'm not saying IB is harder than AP because that's a big debate and I don't want to get into that.
Yeah.
But if you do well, the amount, because for AP, the grading system really only goes up to a 5. And so like, there's a good amount of people that get a 5. There's not that many people, but there's a good amount of people that get a 5. The amount of people that get 7s on IB exams are so small. So if you do well, like if you get a 7 in any subject, you are pretty much guaranteed college credit, first of all, because it's very, very hard at most colleges. I will say there are colleges that just don't pay any IB credits. You would have to look into that. But it's really easy to stand out if you're exceptionally good at anything, right? In IB, it will show, and you will get higher recognition for that, right? Also, IB has so many fun activities. We are like such a fun class cohort to be in. I remember at the beginning of the year, we did like a picnic thing. We all went outside. There were donuts. We played kickball. It was very fun. For Christmas, we had so many things. We had a gift exchange. We had a party. We had like a dinner. It's always, there's stuff happening. There's people to meet. There's events to go to. And if you want, and you will bond with people just by being in class with them. Like I know that's what I've done because I personally have gone to maybe 4 or 5 IB events, which doesn't sound like a lot, but there's a lot. And I have met like so many people that I just didn't know before. So that's really, really good. Also, I mentioned this before, but it's hard to fail IB. Like, if you were a good student before IB, like you were getting A's and high B's, it's very hard to fail, even the classes themselves, you know? Because it's a regular class. Like, it's not like out of this world, like insanely crazy. Like, it's it's not as daunting as people make it out to be. Also, I want to highlight my favorite class because it's so much fun. I love TOK, Theory of Knowledge, and it is not a class that you really get to take anywhere outside of IB, but you basically just discuss knowledge all year, but it's knowledge in like different areas. It's knowledge in, right now we're doing religion, but last term it was knowledge in politics. And then I think we're going to do one more choice unit. Actually, I don't know if we're going to do that. I think we're going to do an exhibition, which you'll get into this once you're in IB, if you choose to join. But it's so much fun. You just basically discuss things. You get to talk, share your opinion, argue with people, but respectfully for like all the class. And it's so much fun for me. And so TOK is definitely a reason that I would say I like IB, right? But that also ties into being outgoing because you kind of have to do that to enjoy TOK. So that's what are my pros. And if I'm talking about things to just note, especially at Marvin, is that think about what you want to do before you go into IB. Because I know, Akshara, you were saying that you wanted to do bio and chem, and then you decided, nope, I'm not gonna do it. And then you were like, oh, maybe I'm not doing IB. Because like, what do you want to do like now?
Now I want to do econ. Actually, see, it switched in the last week. I'll get into this in the AP part.
Yeah, okay. So basically know what you want to do because you're going to be stuck with these classes for 2 years, right? So if you decide like this week that I don't want to do this, I don't want to go down this path anymore. If you do that a lot in your life, I would reconsider because this is a commitment, right? I'm in HL Bio. I'm in my extra class, my SL is sports exercise health science because I know I'm going into health science and I've known that for a really, really long time. And so that wasn't really a bargain, like a risk for me to take because I've been committed to this path for a really long time. But if you're someone that constantly is switching where you want to go in life, I don't think IB is a very good choice for you because you're committed to these classes now, right? So in Marvin, you have really two routes. You have business people and you have science people, right? Because you really don't have, at least our cohort this year, we didn't have any sort of like performing arts class. We didn't have a physics class. That being said, the senior cohort did. And so what you want to take into account when you're going into IB is talk to the people around you, kind of find out what their interests are, because depending on how many people want to do that thing, that's the class that they're going to offer. Right? So we didn't have that many people that wanted to do performing arts in our cohort. So we didn't have it available as a class because it's not a big class. If there's two people that want to do it, obviously they're not going to give us that class. Right? So if you're a big physics person and you're like, oh, IB has physics, they might not, depending on what your cohort looks like, what the makeup is. Right? So that is something to also consider. So if we're talking about cons in IB, you can only take one other elective. And I talked about that with the AP thing. You can take one AP class, you can flex, you can take band, but it has to be 8 AB day, right? So that really limits what you can take because there's a lot of classes that are not 8 AB day. So I would take that into consideration. Also, I don't know if this is just a personal thing, but I think it like for most people, this is how we look at it, is languages, especially English, because you have to take HL English, you're forced to in the Marvin curriculum. And I think most other curriculums, if I'm being, I don't know, I would check at your school, but we have to take HL English. We don't really have a choice. And so that for us is hard because a lot of us would not have taken HL English by choice because we're not like exceptionally good at English, right? Also, Spanish or any language that you take can be hard because it's a big transition. because every single thing that your teacher says to you in that class will be in the language that you're studying. So that can be a big jump for people. And so that's what I have to say about that. Also, history. History, you're also forced to take HLF at our school. So if you're not a big history person, and I know going into IB, at least for our pathway, we were not required to take any sort of formal like history education. Like we took civics, we took personal finance, so we took the money stuff, and we took the like civic stuff. And so we didn't really take history. We didn't take world history. We didn't take US history. And so going into IB history, it's like if you haven't really taken any history at all in like middle school and or you just wasn't really a good education, it can be a hard transition to all of a sudden have to memorize all these dates and all these people. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I have to say. Those are like my only really big two cons, other than, if you're not outgoing, it might not be great for you. But yeah.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about the good stuff for AP?
Yes, this leads us to our AP. So the biggest thing that made me choose AP, what I really, really like about AP, is that you can do whatever you want based on whatever career you're interested in. So for me, I feel like I have a career change at least twice a month. So we start out, generally when I got out of middle school, going to high school, and during that whole COVID time, I was set on doing biology. I've always not wanted to be a doctor, but I always have had an interest in the brain. So I wanted to do research and I thought that was really cool. And I took bio and that was okay. Like I did well because I realized I'm good at memorizing and like spitting things out. But the entire process of learning it wasn't what I expected. And then I took chem and I did not like it. Had very high expectations because it was math based, but I didn't really like the math. Like there was a little bit of math that we did, but like the whole theory of chemistry was not appealing at all. But I still went and did a summer health academy sort of program just to see if medicine is what I wanted to do. We talked about PT, OT, and we did get introduced a little bit to what research would look like. So we dissected a cadaver, which is actual humans. So there were 6 dead bodies there, and we dissected all of them. We looked through them. I held a brain in my hand. We saw like everything. We saw kidney stones. We saw blood clots, like all the different things. It was really crazy. From that experience, I realized that's not for me at all. Like not at all. I don't want to do it. I think it's very important for everybody to learn at least basic anatomy, but for me to go into that level was not what I wanted. That was the first major change, and I went all the way across the spectrum to being a professional violinist. I was very set on that for months, and I was like, why do I even need to study at a normal high school and take APs if I want to do violin? And so I had that whole thing. And then I go to school, and then sophomore year, I took calc and environmental science, and I like math. So I really wanted I was considering like robotics and engineering for a little bit until math got hard. And then I realized that I might not want to do that. So I was thinking about being an environmental something, I don't know, some environmental thing. And then I realized that it's kind of depressing learning all of that, and no one really wants to listen to what you find. So I didn't want to be in that environment. So like, why don't I be an environmental lawyer? And I was like, no, I don't, because I don't want to go to court. And it's the same problem. Like if someone just denies what you believe, it's just very infuriating. And I don't know if I can handle that. So then we went all the way to being in business administration. And I was set on that for a solid month. And then I did an AI program, and I was like, I'm going to be a computer scientist. And I set up a whole pathway for me to do that. And that is the summer of sophomore year. Fall of junior year, I took microeconomics, and I didn't want to do that, but it just got into my schedule, and I loved it. And I started transitioning away from a focus on computer science and artificial intelligence into economics. And like last week, I realized that I want to do business. and focus on the business part, maybe put economics further in the back, just because it's more theory. I really like application, and I like management and all that. So maybe just focusing on the math and being like an investment banker or just like a financial analyst. All of those things feel too individual for me, but I really like leading a team. And that goes more on the business side and the application side of econ rather than actually studying theory. With that said, I changed my career so many times. So when I thought about IB, I realized that if I have to set myself to one path, I'm not gonna do well, because I only like studying when I know there's a result at the end. So freshman year, I really wanted to do IB in the beginning because I was so interested in bio. But when I realized I did not like bio, I was like, absolutely not IB, because I won't have motivation to follow through with what I chose. So that was the biggest thing. And the other one is you can take classes based on your strengths. So originally I wanted to do AP Bio and AP Chem, but learning that I don't like it, I don't have to do that anymore. And you have that period of time where you can drop out of the class. I really like that you can leave whenever you want. And also most of the classes for APs are semesters. Like there are very few that they would extend over the whole year. Like it would be 8 AB day. Or some might take 2 blocks, but it's very rare, specifically in Marvin, how they set it up. So if you don't like something, like it's over, it's done. And then you can take the exam if you want to. It's kind of required in Marvin. But in other places, if you don't like it, you don't even need to do the exam. And that's it. Like you just let it go, and then you don't have to be involved. But IB gives you a diploma. AP has the same thing. You have a capstone program. So you do AP seminar and AP research, and that would give you a diploma in that sense. Fortunately, Marvin does not offer either, so you cannot get that. But you can get AP distinction. So with the number of 5s you get on the exam, which is the highest score, you do get a certain classification. But here is the problem with AP. So you put all this time and effort to so many classes, but you might not get an AP weighting if it's like a 2-semester class. Sometimes they might be weighted as an honors in the beginning and then an AP, even though you're doing an AP workload. And the other thing is that you're gonna have so many different people in each class. They're not gonna be the same one. I actually like that, having different people, meeting new people each time and not having to see the same people every class. But that might be a con to someone else. And another big thing is you can't always trust your teacher if they know what they're doing, because it really depends on what their type of style is and what they think is important, especially if they're not an AP test grader. Then they don't know what the actual graders are looking for. So a lot of AP classes is self-study. And yeah, those are like the big things. And because it's semester, because they're shorter, or even if it's a year, all you're doing is studying for an exam in such a short period of time that you're not going to remember after it, unless you're really, really interested in it and you try really hard to remember it afterwards. That was something I liked when I was considering IB, is that because it's over a 2-year time period, you really have to know what you're talking about to remember all the knowledge. It's not like you're wasting your time. You spend 1 semester focusing so much on something, you forget it, you have to relearn it, take the exam, forget it again. It feels kind of useless in that sense. Your teachers in AP will not, in IB, do they align the test when they do it? Will they put like a bunch of tests on the same day?
We had 1 test a day, but it's still a lot because you have 1 test a day for a week and a half.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So it still can be intense, but you'll have at least the teachers having some sort of communication with each other. Whereas AP, like, you don't know who's in what class, it's so different. So you might have every block you could be tested. So that's another thing. You would have to balance all of that. And the main thing is IB is so all-inclusive. You hit all the points that you need to do to present yourself for colleges, AP is just coursework. So you need to take the time on your own to figure out what extracurriculars you want to do, what service you want to do, what research you want to do if you're interested in all of that. That has to be all on you. It's not going to be supported through the school. It's both a pro and con, because if you're like me and you change your career all the time, it's better if you can try to find your own program to find new things. Like first year, freshman year, I did that bio thing. Then sophomore summer, I did AI and I did a chemistry research program. And then this summer, I want to do another research program in the business and economics thing. So it keeps on changing. But I mean, just watch by the end of the year, I probably will have a new career path. And when I submit my college application in fall, I might have a new thing I want to apply to. So mine keeps changing. And I really like that flexibility that I can, and at any moment, I can change my schedule or pathway.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about the research thing
Yes.
because for and Akshara is so outgoing. She will do like whenever she gets an opportunity, well, I'm taking it. But for IB, you don't really have to do that as much because they provide you with so much opportunity. Like for biology, we are required to come up with an original experiment and do it all on our own and carry it out and do a research report on it. And that's like our independent assessment. Like we have to do that. Same thing for sports, exercise, health science. We need to do our own original thing. For history, we have to write an original research paper on any topic that we want, but it has to be like a new take on this information, right? Same thing for like English. And then for CAS, they require you to do a big service project. Things that would already look good had you done them on your own to a college. Like I started a blood drive on my own. I did a bake sale for this charity, you know. IB sort of forces you to do it, right? So they provide you with those opportunities to learn and to grow. And you can still get those with the AP, but you're gonna have to put in a lot more like initiative and effort.
Right. Yeah, that's a big thing. You just because you do AP doesn't mean you can skip out on all the things IB forces you to do. It's still required if you want to go to a really nice school or just show that you have those leadership traits and show your unique factors in all different aspects other than your coursework. You still need to take that action. IB gives you that support. But again, it's going to be restricted to the things that the school offers in that sense. But if you do it outside, then it's up to you. And even if you're in IB, like if you can take on the work and if you can add to your workload, you can do whatever you want out of school. No one's stopping you. It's just that AP will give you that extra time because you don't have it required at school in addition to what you want to do out of school. It's just your out of school interest.
Yeah.
With that said, AP curriculum setup. So you have 4 blocks every day, and you can do A-Day, B-Day, which is every other day. You could do a class that's every day for the whole year, or you could do a semester. And the pro of this, and it depends per school, specifically in Marvin and I think the Union County area, not all the classes have midterms or finals. It's up to the teacher. So that gives you that flexibility. That could be a pro or a con, because if you do have it, it is forced for you to actually know the knowledge and you get to see it, like how an exam could look, but it's also extra stress. So it's nice to not have it until the end. But yeah, so those are just the general basis of AP and IB. And Bianca, can you talk about the different myths or common myths about IB?
Oh, okay. So there's a lot of things people say about IB that are not true. So the first one is it is a lot of work. I will tell you that. It's like off the bat, I have a lot of work to do. But the thing is, it's not hard work. Like there are essays you have to write, but that's like twice a week maybe that you have to write an essay, which isn't, it might seem like a lot right now, but you kind of get into a routine with essay writing that it just becomes like a second instinct. Like I know how to plan an essay like with my eyes closed, right? So that's really helpful. But most of the work that you will get is not like write a paragraph for each of these sentences. You know, it's like just do this worksheet. It's like normal work, right? So it is a lot of work, but it's not necessarily difficult work, all of it, right? Also, TOK is not a study hall. You have to do stuff in that class. Right now, it's half of the class we spend going over like actual theory of knowledge stuff, talking about it, and then the other half we do extended essay stuff. So we work on our extended essay on those bib cards, on those PRS forms, on well, starting I don't know, next week we're gonna start actually writing it, which is exciting and scary. But yeah, so you actually do stuff in TOK. And there are study hall days, but that's very rare, I want to say. So that's the thing to keep in mind. You're not gonna just have an extra block. Like that's not how that works. Also, just taking, and this works for AP too, just taking IB courses does not mean that you're gonna look better on your application. If you fail the IB courses, don't do that. Like no one's gonna care that you took them. You have to do well, relatively well in IB or AP for it to matter, right? So, you can flex in IB, and I mentioned that you can just not take a block. I don't really know how that looks to colleges because I feel like every college has a different take on why you're doing that, or I don't even, they can't really see it, but they'll know you only took 7 credits, right? So you can flex, but I would really think about how that's going to look on your application before you do it. Also, IB people don't have a life. That's not not true. I personally go to volleyball twice a week. I volunteer once a week. I'm part of like 5 or 6 clubs, like it's a lot, don't get me wrong, but it's manageable, right? It's not like you have to go home and you're studying till 3 a.m. every single day. And there are days that you'll be up till 3 a.m. writing essays, but that's only if you procrastinate. So if you don't do that, you'll be fine. If you manage your time, you will have time to do all the things that you want to do. Another thing, and this is, I don't know who says this, but I've heard it, is that IB undermines American values, that they sort of push this narrative on you because they're like an organization, and an organization inherently has biases and they have beliefs, right? But there's not like, you don't see that. Like, it's not like we have posters everywhere saying like abortion should be legal. Like, there's not,
Yeah.
there is not any of that in IB. So the biggest thing I would say, like, an example of it, what people think is like undermining about American values is in biology, they tell you, you shouldn't be eating butter 5 times a day. You should be eating healthy. These are the good things to eat. Because they are an international organization, they're not an American organization. So they're not going to tell you go to McDonald's twice a week, you know? So in biology, we learn to eat healthy. And that's like the largest like extent to IB forcing its opinions on you, and that's not anything at all,
Yeah.
right? So personally, I don't see that. Also, IB is only for very, 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 very smart people. No, it's not. And I know there are a lot of very, very, very smart people in IB, and they do well. But those people have had to learn. I have had to learn because I've always been a straight A student all my life. I've had to learn how to work in IB, and that's being smart is not good enough. You have to work very, very hard. You have to, and how smart you are will definitely affect the amount, like the quality of the work that you produce. I'm not saying that, like, oh, being smart doesn't make a difference, because obviously it does at school. But the amount of work that you have to put in as a prerequisite to even get decent grades, that in itself is an achievement. So if you are a hardworking person, you weren't necessarily a straight A student, you had B's, you maybe had like a couple C's, I don't, but if you work hard, IB should be fine for you. You should not fail for any reason,
Yeah.
right? So that's the main myths I wanted to go over.
Yeah. like my thoughts on the last two about the undermining American values. The biggest thing that might cause that interpretation is that IB does force you to think. They don't tell you what to think. They tell you to take a topic and make your own opinion on it. They're not going to force an opinion, but they will tell you to at least be aware of it, be conscious of it. Because there are things that are going on in our society that we need to know about, but there's not a specific way they want you to think about it. And the other thing about the elite and smart students and being hardworking, it's you, if you are not a straight A student before and you go in, the amount of work you put in compared to someone who was is going to be significantly different to get the same result. So you have to make sure that you don't compare yourself to others because it might be harder for you. That's going to be there if your like natural talent is below someone else, but that doesn't mean you can't produce the same results as someone who already has a stronger foundation. You can always build on it and grow and have the results that you want to if you put enough work toward your own like personality. However you learn, you pay attention to that and work in that manner so that you get the scores that you want.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so then I just wanted to cover like generally why I chose IB over AP. So when I went to like seminar things back when I was getting ready to decide on AB, AP or IB, I one of the biggest things that I heard that really like changed my view on it is that the type of knowledge that you get with IB is significantly different than the type that you get with AP because AP prepares you to ultimately take a test, and it's a hard test. You're going to have to work really hard to get a good grade on this test, but it prepares you to take a test. For IB, we have so many tests. I don't even, in my mind, I could not tell you all the different assessments that we have to take, all the different very important assessments that we have to take over the course of our IB education. So when we learn in IB, we don't learn for a test. We learn to get a true understanding, to be able to go into a field and make original commentary on something to build upon the subjects that we already have learned, not only know it, but be able to apply it, right? Because you need to do that in order to get the kind of, because for IB, most of our assessments are writing. It's very, very heavily writing. So it's not like recall, it's more just come up with your own ideas, What do you have to say about this topic? And so going into college, it makes it a lot easier for you to acclimate because you already know how to write papers. By the end of last semester, from where I was at the beginning of the year to my writing skill at the semester mark, I just have improved so much in every subject. It's completely insane. And so for me, as someone who was never really like, I didn't think of myself as a good writer, IB has helped me so much with that. And also, I don't think, because at first, research for me was really, really daunting. Like, how do I go and do research on things? And I'm like, there's so many like verified scientists out there who are already doing things. So I'll never come up with anything that's original or good or, new to add. But IB has sort of taken that fear away from me by forcing me to come up with original experience, by forcing me to think about what has already been done and what hasn't been done. So it's sort of when I'm going into college and I'm not even out of college, when I'm doing my own research, perhaps, I am not scared of it anymore because I have that foundation that IB has given me. So that's why that was like my deciding thing that like I don't want to have, and Akshara was saying it, like with AP, you learn something, you forget it, as soon as you've taken the test. With IB, it's very much the information that you learn stays with you because you have internalized it, because you are constantly being assessed on it and assessed in a way that is much more difficult because it's just purely what do you know, right? So that's why I chose it.
Yeah. And again, what made me choose AP is that I changed my career path all the time. And having my career, whatever phase I'm in, that is what motivates me to study in that specific subject. So if I'm stuck to something that I know I don't like, I know I will not succeed because I don't want to study it anymore. So that was the huge thing that called me to AP, despite having, there are a lot of drawbacks that you have to be independent in all the other aspects of your application for college. And you also, if you really care about the knowledge you learned in the course, you have to go back on your own, revise it, and internalize it all by yourself. A lot of things you have to do on your own. Despite all of that, it's just really nice to have the flexibility to sign up for what I want, depending on my mood at the time, depending on the phase of career path I'm thinking about. Yeah. All right. Other than that, do you have any advice you want to give for future IB people?
Oh, okay. I think going into IB, I did not know anyone. All my friends who were going into IB dropped out last minute, and I was super duper mad. And I was like, "What? This is not okay. Like, I'm gonna be completely alone." And then I go into IB, and just the amount of people that I have found and become friends with, and I am not a particularly you know, like I make friends, but I don't really super, super outgoing with everybody, but just being around these people and going through IB with them, which I'm not saying it's a relationship like built off trauma or anything, but you will you will hear people say that. It's sort of going through this common experience that I text people every single day, just purely with IB stuff, you know? Because we need to support each other, and so you will find friends. If you're worried about that, don't be worried about that. I think that's it for me right now.
One thing I would say for AP is that to make the experience actually enjoyable, you do have to be outgoing. That's a big thing, common in both IB and AP. You really do have to be outgoing, especially in AP, because you have different people in every single class. Like you might not have the same person who goes throughout your entire day. So to make sure you have that support group, it's essential to go out and talk to people. And I forgot to mention earlier, with teachers, you need to take that step to go talk to your teacher and make them remember you, because they teach classes of like 40 people and they have 3 blocks, and they're not going to remember who you are if you just are quiet and you just participate, because they only see you once a day and the time period, like it could be a semester, it could be a year, or every other day for a year. So you have to make yourself memorable, and you need to be outgoing in all of the aspects for AP. Some things that you should remember is that for IB and AP, the course credit that you get might not be accepted for all schools. AP is more generally accepted. That is changing. That was like that in the past, but like now, as we're going through, IB is getting a lot more accepted at the same level as AP, but that doesn't mean all schools are doing it. Many schools are cutting back even on their AP credit acceptances, just because they want you to learn. The colleges want you to learn in their way. So don't just do it for the credit, because most likely you might not get credit for the thing that you're doing with that college. Do you have any other IB things?
No, I think I'm good. I think I've covered everything.
Yes. Okay, well, that is all that we have today. If you're seeing this on YouTube and you have more questions, feel free to reach out to us either through commenting or on Instagram. You can send us a message. But yeah, I hope this helped you figure out what path you want to go on.
Bye bye.